Welcome to Dorks on Sports, podcast about four dorks talking about sports. My name is Daniel. Joining me, as always, is the illustrious Curtis. Curtis, how's it hanging? How you been? What's been happening? What's going on?
I'm on fumes. My 3.5-year-old decided that everybody needed to be wide awake at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, nice. It's that stage of parenting.
Children.
It is.
Yeah.
Usually he sleeps in till like 8:30, and apparently the morning of our podcast recording, he decided that 4 a.m. was the time to be awake.
How does Curtis deal with a 4 a.m. wake up from the child?
Personally, it's super annoying because I routinely get up between 4 and 5 so that I can have a few hours to myself to watch news, watch a movie, watch the boys, play some video games, go into an internet wormhole on Black Sabbath. You know, it's my time.
Yeah.
And that
was interrupted.
It was massively interrupted by somebody who wanted to watch Blippy videos.
Oh.
Nice. Well, now we get a dork out about some sports. So, yeah, we'll give you something today. Alana, how are you doing over there?
Doing all right. I had a really good weekend and good Father's Day, Dada Day, as we call it in my household.
Yeah.
So it was nice.
Nice. What'd you do?
Got free tickets to see Bruce.
What? How'd you like it? So
I
Bruce,
enjoyed it.
If for the listeners at home who don't know anything about it, it is a musical about the making of Jaws.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was entertaining. There weren't any like kick out. There was one really good song, and the rest of the songs were pretty much like it was kind of flat in that regard.
Yeah.
But the storytelling was great. The examination of the creative process was great. And the one song that kicked ass was about being a superhero Jew in movies. And it's just like, yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing we need. So big shout out and thanks to Helen Roundhill, who they were able to give me free tickets for the whole family to go, and the kid loved it. And so it was a really good experience.
Ah, that's wonderful. I hear it's, correct me if I'm wrong, it's framed around specifically like the making of the animatronic shark, right?
Yeah, that is the white whale, as it were, of the production.
Yeah.
And it's done, and there's a lot of creativity around it, in terms of how they kind of deal with it.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Well,
yeah,
that sounds fun. Millie,
hey,
how are you doing?
I'm hanging in there.
Been a minute.
I know. I haven't talked to you dorks in a long time. Visually, there's always the chat.
There's always the group chat.
But I'm doing all right. My job's kind of kicking my ass, so that's eating up more of my time than I would like to admit. But finding time to do fun things. We went and caught for Father's Day. We went and caught a game up in Everett, the Aqua Sox.
How was that?
It's always a good time.
I love minor league baseball.
It was actually a pretty close game, but I'll tell you what's really neat about going to those games right now is they have the pitching clock.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Guess how long that game was?
How long?
2 hours and 45 minutes.
Wow.
How long a baseball game really should be.
There's a lot of baseball purists out there who are against any kind of change that will shorten the game. I'm not a baseball purist, and anything that can bring the game under 3 hours, I am in favor of. Because going to a Mariners game and getting out at like 10:40, and we've had a few of those games over the past couple of weeks, that's too much. I got to work in the morning. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, it was it definitely goes apace. And the only thing I've heard, which didn't factor in here as far as I know, is that the other piece has to do with how many times you can throw to first. And I can see how that would be a real detriment, because if you're limited in how many times you can do it, then once you've done it twice, I mean, the guy on first is just going to go. So
Right.
I'm not sure I understand the efficacy of that and what it would do to the game, but the pitching clock, I'm all about it because, well, we're going to talk more about the Mariners, but that recent series, the pitching was just ridiculous. How much time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. I mean, even in today's game, there was a 15 pitch, one batter that was just crazy. Agreed. We'll talk more about that later. I want to start talking about the NBA Finals. We had an NBA Finals just finished. I actually thought it was they were like pretty much the last two teams I wanted to see in the finals. But I thought it was a pretty entertaining series. Alana, what are your thoughts?
I thought the games themselves, especially once we got back to Golden State the first time, went to Boston after Game 3, were kind of dull. They were dull in terms of a competitive stance. They were exciting because Steph Curry. And for me, what this whole series really was the taking of Steph Curry of one of those top 10 spots for all-time players.
I mean, 100% agree.
He's got the resume. He's got the unique skill set. He's got the championships. And I think it's impossible not to put him in that top 10.
I fully agree with you. I thought that was the big takeaway for me in these finals was the fact that Steph Curry took over that series definitively, like 100%. You can't say otherwise. He was the X factor in the NBA Finals, and he deserved every bit of that MVP award, and put himself on the map in the top 10 of all time. Yeah, and the fact just watching him and seeing like, oh yeah, he changed the game. Like Steph
absolutely
Curry single-handedly changed how basketball is played right now, and we're watching it in real time. Yeah, I agree. Anybody else watch the finals? Millie, Curtis?
I don't watch the NBA too closely, as you all know, and I know that there was a lot of sentiment against these two teams. I don't know enough about them. I just know the last time I kind of cared about the NBA was when Golden State was suddenly like they had that incredible streak of wins.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I remember being like, oh, so I was like, oh, this Golden State team's kind of interesting. So I have a huge thing for Steph Curry, which I'm actually going to talk about in Dorking. So I'll do it then. But super, super fun to watch those runs. And it was an interesting series. I mean, Boston's an interesting team as well. Like just, I don't know, the NBA just doesn't do it for me. So I'll pass.
I like Boston a lot, and I think they're
I hate them.
Talented team. I'm just, I talk in terms of talent. And to me, what stood out from the finals was the experience of Golden State versus the inexperience in Boston. And I think that played a big role in that. I mean, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green is a core that has been around for, I don't know, 8 years, whatever, however long it's been. They know how to play together and go down as one of the all-time great, team core players.
Jason Tatum is a whiny little baby who's not made for the moment. Everybody, he's like the team leader, and in that game 6, he had 12 points. Like he disappeared.
That's the thing.
And
I agree.
Jaylen Brown showed big game skill set. I mean, he was absolutely the MVP on that Boston team.
Yeah.
Along with Al Horford, but Jason Tatum, just every single call, he's like, "What are you doing?" It's like, pump the brakes, bro.
Is he the one who was out the last time they went and they didn't win?
He was, when you mean in the finals?
Yeah.
Tatum wasn't on the team at that point in time. The last time they were in the finals, he's pretty young. I think this is his 4th or 5th year.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Interesting though. Good for Steph Curry. I think anybody who was like a Steph Curry hater, they got no argument anymore. Steph Curry is He's one of the best. He's one of the best of all time, and congratulations to him. The Mariners. The Mariners are playing right now. I think we're now bottom of the seventh, something like that. They're leading 7-0.
7-2.
What's that?
7-2, because we
7-2?
can't get 5
Okay.
runs and not give up any. That's the Mariners for you.
That's the Mariners for you. This has been, I think I went into this season with I think my expectations were too high. This has been a really frustrating year for me. And I still think the team is talented, but this has been a frustrating season for me. I think we're 10 games behind 500, which is, I mean, that's a huge hole to dig out of. What's going on with this team, Millie? Did we have unfair expectations for this team? What are your thoughts?
I mean, look, we were all fans who wanted the promise to be delivered on. And it definitely was looking good in the beginning. We had our typical crappy May, but now we're in June. And I don't know. I mean, part of the problem, if you look back at some of the things that we talked about right at the beginning of the season, or even before we started, was, the big names, Haniger, he's still out. We have no idea when he's coming back. Kellenic, just fell apart. He's still over in AAA in Tacoma. Julio's great. Julio's fantastic. Julio just hit a home run. That promise fulfilled. But a lot of the guys we were counting on aren't quite making it happen. I think the promise of pitching that we heard is actually being delivered on. And what is driving me crazy is these poor pitchers with these really quality starts, and maybe they give up 1 or 2 runs, but it's not enough, because we can't get hot with bats when we've got these low counts. And it's so disappointing. It's got to be disheartening. And a lot of what we talked about that worked so well for this team last year and looked like the momentum was sticking was how excited they were and how, they all played together as a team. But it's really disheartening when that happens again and again, and especially because it happens more at home. So they don't quite have that lift. I'm not giving up yet. I'm not ready. It's throwing the towel. It's flipping June. Other teams can fall apart for a month too. So I am still hopeful that we can find a way into a wild card playoff of some kind, but it's definitely not looking quite as good. I mean, we have 3 really, really good quality players. We've got 3 really good quality pitchers, at least a decent bullpen. We have the pieces, but there's some really questionable decision making, which I know. Well, my biggest frustration during that Angels series. I mean, here's a team, they fired their coach. This should have been a no-brainer. But instead, 2 outs, 1 guy on first base.
Pitch to Trout.
Want to pitch to Mike Trout every time he hit a home run. Where is
the most obvious?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been sort of sitting back, tracking the Mariners much more closely than I have probably in 5 years or more, because of the hopefulness of them this year. And I cannot help but draw the comparison to the 2022 Mariners with the 2021 Seahawks. The 2021 Seahawks were coming off a 12-4 season, a bit of a disappointment in the end, losing to the Rams in the playoffs, but there was a lot of momentum and feeling that if we just walk it back with, these certain players and add a couple pieces here and there, hey, we can do it again and we can go further in the playoffs. And they completely fell apart. And I sort of feel like in a lot of ways, this is sort of the 2022 Mariners, and that hey, we had this magical month of September, and we almost got there, and we almost, broke the 20-year cycle of, missing the playoffs. And, we're just going to walk it back and we're going to add a couple really nice pieces and that's going to be fine. But they walked back players that have injury histories, Haniger has been injured a lot. Lewis has been injured a lot. And it just kind of feels like, gosh, I don't know, but it sort of feels like the combination of that. And I think the pressure, there's got to be an extraordinary amount of pressure on these young players and the coaches and the manager to win, to get to the playoffs. I mean, this is an insane drought. I mean, they are literally like the Cleveland Browns of Major League Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
We're in
there's like so much pressure.
And season of no playoffs. Yeah.
And I'm actually, I'm completely against this idea. And I always push back on it. I think that last year, Carroll and Schneider for the Seahawks deserved a mulligan. They lost their star quarterback for a number of games and he played like crap when he came back because he wasn't healthy enough to play, and so I can see running it back with them, but I'm sort of wondering with Dipoto and Service whether, because the farm system is built up so strongly and they've got these core players, of whether or not like a fresh eyes, like a fresh GM, a fresh manager, a manager that's maybe a little bit more like Piniella and can fucking blow up. With a duck. I mean, he just had a way of like.
Seems as though we've lost Curtis, or I'm lost.
I mean, he was for his guys, but
Curtis, I think it might.
Anyhow, I'll just end it right there. I'm currently at the place of wondering whether or not there needs to be a change. And it's weird to say it because they just signed both these guys to like long extensions.
Yeah. I personally, I like Dipoto, and I think a lot of the decisions he's been making, we're seeing the fruits of now. I don't know if I'm quite sold on Service. I like Service a lot. I think he brings a lot of like really great qualities to the team. He obviously loves them. I think the team loves him. I do question his decision-making sometimes. So I don't know. What do you think, Alana? Do you think it's time for a change?
No, I don't think it's time for a change. I think that Service builds a culture like Carroll builds a culture. And I think that I think that this is where, we expected to be in contention in 22. We're not in contention. We played like crap. We've played like crap. We don't have one of our best players in Haniger. I'm not saying that that's enough of an excuse. We have three batsmen who are playing well, and J-Rod, JP, and Ty France. Ty France and Logan Ryan, what's his name? Logan Gilbert are going to go to the All-Star game. I'm pretty confident about both of those guys. And I think I have a lot of faith they're going to turn it around throughout the season. I don't know if they'll make the playoffs. Gilbert. They've got like 6 teams to jump, but I know my internet connection is seemingly unstable right now.
We got you. We can hear you.
The news is you froze in a really great look.
Oh, awesome. But yeah, they're fun to watch. We'll get there eventually. That's my feeling about it. I trust Dipoto. Service is, I think, a strong coach. So.
I mean, at times they've looked elite. They've looked really, really great. The pitching, I think, has been a strength for the most part. And sometimes the hitting is, there's a part of me that feels if, Winker was hitting over 300, we might have won like 6 more games. But I'm hoping he gets back on track.
Suarez has been great too.
Suarez has been a steal. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I love that.
You'd almost think that they made the trade for
Or
Eugenio.
Suarez instead of Winker, totally. And if that's the way it went down, I'd still say pretty good choice.
Winker is like Adrian Beltre, like great player, like awesome, so much promise, and then shows up and is just like a total dud.
Yeah.
And then he's gonna leave in 3 years and go to fucking Blue Jays
and hit 450.
Hit 450. You know,
Well,
like
yeah, I know.
He had a good night. He's having a good role here. we like Wanker.
It's not a surprise, but she officially announced her retirement at the end of this season. End of an era. I mean, I have a lot I can say about Sue Bird, and I think she has been one of the greatest athletes in all of sports history. And I don't think she gets enough credit because she plays for the WNBA. And if the WNBA had been as popular as the NBA, we would be talking about her like we talk about Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or LeBron James.
Mm-hmm.
It's bittersweet. She's certainly, earned her retirement, and I don't know, she's 40 something now,
41
something, 42. So good for her. She's trying to make a last run with the Seattle Storm. Right now, I think the Seattle Storm is second in their division. They might be like
second in the division, third seeded overall in the
so they're playing well. They're playing well, and I think the Storm this is their last dance. We're going to go all in and try to win one more championship. Curtis, what do you think? Have you been following the Storm this season? And I just want to hear, your thoughts on Sue Bird and what she means to the city and the sport in general.
Hell yeah, I've been following this team. They're my second favorite Seattle sports team outside of the Seahawks. Of course, I'm tracking these girls. They're, they have been a little bit up and down. They lost Sue and a couple other quality starters, I think, on the COVID list for a few games, and that hurt them, and they were a little rusty when they got her back. But they've, they're a dangerous team. They play in a conference that has Asia Wilson in Vegas, and she's phenomenal. She's a big that is super athletic and talented, and can kind of do it all. I mean, I think she can play all 5 spots, on the court well. And that is a team that's been constructed by Bill Laimbeer, and it has that sort of big sort of mentality of being a physical thing, and they are going to be their toughest out. So my feelings when I saw this news break last week of this being officially her retirement is I think that the organization really wants the players and the fans to rally around her, because they know how tough it's going to be to go up against Vegas and probably one other team out in the East, maybe Connecticut, is pretty good too. And so it was a really interesting observation for what they did this off season. They had a bunch of draft picks. None of them made the roster. They all were cut in favor of veteran talent, players that are on 1-year contracts with Sue, including Breonna Stewart. So this really kind of feels like a last dance kind of effort to surround roster with as much quality veteran, been there, done that sort of talent on the floor. So it'll be interesting to watch how it goes down.
What do you think their chances are for,
I think it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really tough to get. I mean, but they were gangbusters last year at this time and fell off towards the end. So maybe there's a chance that, maybe Vegas plateaus a little bit, in the second half of the season, and Seattle catches them and they can sneak by them. And I mean, when they won that championship, back in 2018 against the Phoenix Mercury, Diana Rossini, or Diana Taurasi was at the top of her game. She might have arguably been the best player in the league, and they had our girl who's currently captive in Russia, Brittany Griner. And so that was one of that series in 2018 against Seattle and Phoenix is one of the best basketball series I've ever seen. And I used to be, a long time, Supersonics, like big time Supersonics fan. And so I've been on a mini kind of boycott with the league. I just can't watch an NBA game and not be reminded that my team was ripped from Seattle. So it's too hard for me to track that sport. But I will say that the game 4 of that series in Seattle, Seattle was on the ropes and Sue Bird took that game over, and she was like an assassin. She was just, and she was on, it's just wearing this mask because
I remember that
previous game she got her fucking nose broken.
Yep.
And she was just lethal, and she was playing with all kinds of fire, and it was just amazing to see that. So yeah, I hope they can pull it out. It's going to be tough this year, but it would be awesome if they could finish her career with one more title. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Alana, what talk to me about the legacy that Sue Bird leaves behind, on the sport and in the city of Seattle?
I think there are two things for me that really stick. One is that Sue Bird is a Mount Rushmore athlete for Seattle, alongside Ken Griffey, Ichiro, and then to be determined. I feel like we maybe 6 months ago would have said Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like
Marshawn.
Now it's
Marshawn, great. But I mean, like
Marshawn up there.
Let's ride. Cheese ball. So I think that that's important, and I think that that's something that's unique to Seattle, right? Where one of our Mount Rushmore players is somebody who's in a non-Power 4 league, and I think it's undeniable that she is one of those 4, and it's really important to hold on to her for that. I think the other thing that's really important, and this will tie in a little bit later, is the absolute totality of the power couple that is her and Megan Rapinoe, in terms of like queer culture in this city, in terms of like representing women's athletics to a broader audience. I mean, the amount of fight that is in Megan Rapinoe in terms of ensuring that women soccer players were paid the same as men for World Cup victories, and they won that fight.
Yeah.
And then she was just quoted very recently in an article about her in Time Magazine about the ludicrous quality of these anti-trans legislations and sports bills that are coming out, because Megan Rapinoe is a feminist and an intersectional feminist, and Sue Bird is right there with her. And the number of times that I've been out in Ballard and I've just stumbled across them, just because they live in Ballard and they hang out, it just warms my heart to see these fucking goddesses who are like so representative of everything that's good about sports and knowing that they're ours, knowing that, you know, and I don't mean I don't want to use that ownership terminology, but like, it feels like Seattle's their home, and it feels like I know that they're gonna have, they've talked about having a baby, and that has been part of their conversation and their journey. And like, I look forward to them being in this community and joining Peps. Like, can you just imagine if you have a baby and it happens to be the same time as the Sue Bird, Megan Rapinoe baby, and you're in a Peps group with them? Like, you'd be going to everybody going, oh, you know, and like, I don't know. So I think that their focus on the fight and their focus on being an ally within the context of what it means for them to be an ally, and their representation of Seattle, they're just magic, both of them. And Sue Bird is a major part of that. So she's meant a lot to the city. She's meant a lot to me as a female basketball player myself. Like, she's an idol. So
I agree. And you know, I selfishly, I'll say this. I know, you know, pro sports is a business and everything, but there's something really special about an athlete who doesn't wear anybody else's colors. And the fact that she played her entire career in Seattle means a lot to me. I don't know. I always want a superstar athlete to represent the qualities that Sue Bird represents, and you rarely get it, you know. And when you do, I think it's really, really special.
She is the GOAT. She is going to be incredibly missed. I get a little choked up when I just think about it. I don't see enough of the Storm because I do really enjoy those games. I've seen them in the arena, I've seen them in Everett, and now, you know, and now I've seen them in Climate Pledge. Like, it's just so special. And she's one of the games I went to, like, Megan was there, and there was the Everett game last year. There was a whole, you know, they brought back all these players from years past. It was a celebration of the WNBA, and it was their special night. And there's just so much love and so much respect that goes on, and the fans love it, and it's so family friendly. I think of all the sporting events I've been to, I feel like there's just a lot more kids who are just really into it. Maybe partially it's because it's a more affordable ticket. You can actually bring your whole family. But she is really special. And what's funny to me is I think we would all agree she goes on that Mount Rushmore. But we probably would never agree on the other three. Because for me, if you're going to pick a Mariner, it's going to be Edgar, which isn't one of the two you even mentioned, right? We all have our feelings about who they would be. But I don't think anyone would question.
It's indisputable for me. I think Sue Bird is the one indisputable Seattle Mount Rushmore athlete.
I have to say, I mean, like, I agree that Edgar is a really good choice. But the excitement from Griffey, what he meant to the city. Like, Edgar was workman, but Ken Griffey felt like he grew up with Seattle.
And just to make Ken Griffey's case, I do have to say, number one, legitimately good man.
Yes.
Who played in a rotten era of baseball, just a really corrupt era of baseball. He played clean. And undisputed Ken Griffey Jr., one of the greatest baseball players of, you know, the 100+ year of Major League Baseball. I think that's indisputable as well. He was the greatest player of his generation.
I think he's the greatest player I've ever seen live play baseball. For me, my two, since we're all talking Seattle Mount Rushmore athletes, I mean, my four are definitely Sue. To me, right there with her have got to be Griffey and Sean Kemp, because they came into this town right at the same time, right at the same age, my age. So I kind of felt like a certain, like, really super close connection to both of them. And when both of them ascended to superstar, talents that put Seattle sports on the map in the 90s, it felt really special. It was really tough to watch both of those players go on and play on other organizations. And then probably the fourth one to me, honestly, has got to be Marshawn Lynch. I think Marshawn Lynch was the heart and soul of the team that won the Super Bowl for Seattle.
I would agree. This is a spicy take. I'm going to give my spicy take. I think that fourth one belongs to Pete Carroll.
Oh, there you go.
Oh yeah, that's reasonable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, I was thinking that too.
Not
Although I
that
have to say,
spicy.
one of the things with Marshawn is like beast mode is
mildly spicy. It's like out of 5 stars, I gave a 1.5 star take.
Go ahead, Millie. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's all right. So I mean, the thing with Marshawn is he for the short amount of time relatively that he played, the reach internationally of what he was and who he is was astounding for a running back. Like,
Yeah.
people still say beast mode. I mean, he
Right.
owned that.
You
So
know what that means. Yeah.
In an era where the running back has become, I don't want to say obsolete, but it's taken a back seat to what the running back has been in the history of the NFL. Yeah.
And if you want to talk about a genuinely good man too,
Yeah.
like Marshawn
Yeah.
Lynch is a fucking prince.
And the fact that, he still lives in Oakland and everything, but he continues to give back to the city of Seattle.
Yeah.
and to put
Yeah,
it in,
he's
I would just
exactly.
say when it comes to, the thing about picking a Mount Rushmore is it's just like, picking a best picture. What are your, everybody has
Totally.
different qualifications for what it
Mhm.
means to them. And I
Yeah.
think for me, part of it is I'm a petty bitch. And so Ken Griffey doesn't get my vote
Because he left us.
because he left.
I
He left
appreciate
us.
Petty.
We all appreciate Petty. Sorry,
But he
Russell
came
Wilson.
back. He came back and he took a nap
He did.
during a game. And like
Yeah.
that's baseball right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I give him props.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. This is a slow NFL time of the year. But there's always some news going on. The Seahawks have been, working in some OTAs. So some rookies have been getting some work. Some new players. We got a quarterback battle happening. Curtis,
Sure.
give me some thoughts. Give me what are the things you've been seeing that's made you excited?
One of the narratives that I keep hearing about is how good the rookie corners are looking in
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant,
so
which is going
excited.
to take some used to saying that. Kobe Bryant plays for the Seahawks. Kobe Bryant has been by numerous accounts. It's a the OTAs, the mini camps are really for the receivers and the quarterbacks, and the defenders can't do much. But from what I've been hearing, he's been in the right positions like all the time, and there was like throws which would have easily have been interceptions. And he's been splitting time with the ones,
That's the thing that made me kind of
alternating
excited was how
at
many
the
reps
left
he was getting.
cornerback position. Yeah,
Yeah.
where which is the highly valued one. And then the other guy is Tariq Woolen, who is 6'4" and runs the 40-yard dash in the 4.2s and is long. And his speed, his size, and his athleticism has been really jumping out in camp. And his ceiling is insane
It's insane
for what it could be. Yeah.
He gets a lot of comparisons to Richard Sherman because they're both these raw talents with good physical gifts who were converted from wide receiver to play cornerback in college. The Seahawks have been posting on social media clips from those OTAs, and there is a clip of Tariq Woolen doing that patented Pete Carroll back pedal and then spinning to run down the field. And his pivot was like The Flash. It was like Marvel's superhero. It was something that Richard Sherman in his prime couldn't even sniff. No. And if Tariq Woolen can capture Richard Sherman's command of reading offenses and instincts and stuff like that, this dude is a generational talent.
I mean, we could be, what would it be like if in 2 years' time, like we're talking, like the whole talk is about this Woolen kid and Kobe Bryant, and we're all thinking like, yeah, those LOB guys were, yeah, they were pretty good.
yeah, right. Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like I think that would be awesome. I mean, it really would be, and it would be. I mean, it really would be a feather in the cap to like Carroll's legacy as a coach who develops, you know, defensive backs. You know,
it's really hard to be. Or I have to imagine that one of the most impossible things as an NFL coach and GM tandem is to build a team, tear it down, and rebuild the same team. Like that's, right. I mean, A, you don't usually get that much rope. B, your philosophies change over time, and people learn about how you do things. Or maybe your philosophies don't change over time, but people learn about how you do things and then react to that. And so you have to adapt to it. And for a 6-year-old, 74-year-old,
I think he's 71.
Okay, an old man in
Pete
old. Carroll responding to this, changing his philosophy kind of, but then also finding new guys. Like, I have so much excitement for this upcoming year outside of the quarterback position. Like I'm really feeling the wet fart that is the Geno Smith Drew Lock combination. But like what quarter? Who cares? Like for me, I understand that it's exciting outside of me. But that defense, I'm like next year, like this year maybe, but next year that defense is going to be a top 5 unit. You know, and then maybe we have a quarterback. And then maybe we're going to go to the Super Bowl again before Denver. Like, and is there a better victory than that? No, there isn't. Like in all of sports, trade away your best player and then go to the Super Bowl before the team that you traded them to. There is no sweeter victory than that. And I think it's potentially there.
I'm going to give you a scenario. 2 years from now, the Seahawks have, They've drafted a young quarterback. Maybe they get CJ Stroud. All right. So CJ Stroud, he's in his second year. All right. Pete Carroll has recreated the Legion of Boom. We make it to the Super Bowl. We're going against Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos.
Oh my God.
And then we take him 43-7. That would feel pretty good.
That's what the next episode of The Boys is going to be.
You know, I got to be perfectly honest. I'll just say this really quickly. I've really come around to like pulling for Drew Lock in the worst way, because here's the thing. If he turns it around in Seattle and is like, you know, like a top 15 quality quarterback, plays really well within the system, stays within the structure, does everything that the OC wants, and is a good leader, and in a sort of maybe slightly more athletic Matt Hasselbeck kind of way. And Seattle doesn't have to blow a first-round pick on an unproven quarterback next year and can just further load up on the defensive line and other key positions and stuff, while, like, you know, Russell Wilson is sitting in Denver, kind of on the decline. You know, he doesn't move as quick as he used to be, and maybe he's getting a little bit more banged up and is missing more games and stuff like that. Like, you know, it'd be great for us Seahawk fans, but it would kind of suck major for Denver Bronco fans.
Oh yeah,
that they gave up on this guy like too
totally
early. And he actually turned it around in Seattle when he got a second chance, you know, with a coaching staff that believed in him. Like, I just think that would be like an incredible storyline if that were to play out that way.
So let's say, you know, Drew Lock turns into a Kirk Cousins or something like that.
Sure.
kind of like top 10, is never going to be elite, will never make the Hall of Fame, but does what the OC says, limits some turnovers, and, hits the receivers where they're supposed to be. Does that put John Schneider up in the upper echelon of all-time GMs?
Yeah, absolutely. How would it not?
Yeah.
They both would become Hall of Famers, both Schneider and Carroll.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm excited. I don't know. I don't have any expectations for this next season of Seahawks, and I kind of like it because now I can just have fun for what is going to happen. I was telling Curtis, this could be a 6-win team. I don't think a Carroll team is ever going to be like less than 4 or 5 wins. This could be a 6-win team. But this could also, like, if the defense does what it's supposed to, and Drew Lock or Geno Smith or whatever becomes that game manager who throws 18 to 20 times a game and limits turnovers, and Penny does what he was doing last year, Kenneth Walker kind of does his thing, this could be a 10-win team. I mean, is that crazy?
It's not insane to think that they could. I mean, who saw the Philadelphia Eagles turning that thing around?
Yeah, exactly.
Last year, right? Like, it happens in this league, like, all the time.
But I haven't been paying too much attention to the offseason, to be perfectly frank. So I'm curious because I heard a little bit of rumbling about DK. Did we get things settled? Did he ever show up?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Are we concerned?
No.
I'm not concerned yet. I think if there was troubled waters, we'd be hearing some rumors. There'd be some media chatter. The Seahawks are just that kind of team that are going to leak that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And everything Carroll has said is like, I'm not worried. It doesn't, blah, blah, blah. From the rumors that I've been hearing, it feels like a deal is imminent and they're hammering out the details.
Something was some article came out today I was reading on my lunch break that was like, there's an expectation out now that it's looking like a contract of 4 years over $100 million with $70 million guaranteed.
Oh, wow. That's a big contract.
It's going to be a huge.
But he's a superstar.
And the value of the wide receiver is skyrocketed. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if we're not going to pay a quarterback right now, I think it's kind of worth it. If you're going to have Drew Lock, let's have a superstar like DK Metcalf. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be upset at that kind of contract. Yeah. Alana, I kind of wanted to turn this over to you. There's been a recent decision about banning trans athletes from women's sporting competitions, which is a topic that this podcast has talked a little bit about. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so for the details, the International Swimming Federation, which is called the FINA, I don't know why, those are not the initials, and they administer international aquatic sports competitions, issued a ruling that they have decided that unless you have completed your transition by the time you turn 12, and therefore have not gone through male puberty, language is garbage. Then you are not allowed to compete with women, or you are not allowed to compete against biological women. The first thing I want to address before I get into that is the term biological women is recognized as a dog whistle. This is something that is signifying specifically to transphobes that whoever is doing the speaking is aligned with their viewpoints that trans women aren't women. And so the fact that this decision uses that language is distressing to me. This is largely in response to one trans woman swimmer winning a national, being the best in the nation at one event. One across however many other NCAA trophies that were awarded. And now they have said, ostensibly, and this is only focused on trans women, this is not focused on trans men.
Right.
Ostensibly that they will not be allowed to compete with women, and that they are going to be creating an open category, bullshit, wherein trans people can compete. But to fill that category and to get the support of the other federations that exist in order to create the events that would allow for an open category to flourish is a complete and total pipe dream. The amount of money that they would have to funnel into that to develop a program so that these trans people can compete it's not going to happen. It just simply will not happen. And so because of this ruling, they've effectively banned from international competition, including the Olympics, trans women from competing. And a lot of the language that they're using and a lot of the science that they're using around this is based on the fact that so-called that Leah Thomas, when she was competing as a man, she was ranked in the 500s nationwide. And then when she switched to competing as a woman, as she should be competing, she became ranked in the top 10. But this is a gross misinterpretation of the facts, because when she swam as a freshman and a sophomore on the men's team, she was ranked in the top 15 as a freshman and in the top 10 as a sophomore. And then when she started on hormone replacement therapy, she dropped from like that top 15 rank to about the 500 level, because hormone replacement therapy, when you are a assigned male at birth and transitioning to live as a trans woman, it breaks down your muscles. You lose strength, you lose the things that make you a good athlete. And forget the fact that women's sports don't exist because there are women, because women can't compete with men, because that's bullshit. The reason that women,
I was going to bring up that point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, the reason that women's sports exist is because men don't want to lose to women. That's exactly why women's sports exist. And now we've twisted it and are saying it's because we pour money into men's sports and don't want to put money into women's sports, so that now it's about the competition differences. And yes, there are some sports where a natural physique of a man is going to be better at that sport than a woman. But there are some sports like gymnastics, for example, like certain types of martial arts, etc., where women are far more equipped to perform in those events. All of that is to say that this ruling is a part of and I'm going to use some really strong language here. It's a part of America's march toward transgender genocide.
Yep.
We are currently in phase 7, according to the kind of overview of how genocides happen out of 9. I can't remember if it's out of 10 or 9, but we're like 70% of the way there. And the only things that are left to do is to start actually killing people. State sanctioned murder. And I'm raising the alarm flags because we just had the platform for the state of Texas Republican Party is basically saying that homosexuals don't have the right to exist, that trans people are a blight on our society. We have somebody who's running in South Carolina for a House seat that wants to bring back the House Un-American Activities Committee, which was the McCartney committee. Yeah, the HUAC, who wants to bring that back to try trans people and gay people for treason so that they can kill them.
Oh my God.
This is conversation that is happening. This is somebody who has won the primary in his district. And then you look at Florida, where they are attempting to remove children from their families because they take them to a drag show. That this is a felony offense to take a child to a drag show. It is calculated, it is determined, it is focused, and it is an attack on the queer community in total. And really, there have been over 300 laws that have been introduced into state legislatures targeting trans folks in 2022, and it's fucking June. And even with what we have in Biden as like a leader of our country, and we're supposed to be in this kind of like calm right now compared to where we were with Trump. They released a Nancy Reagan stamp during Pride Month. And this is somebody who ignored the AIDS epidemic.
Right.
And didn't ever say AIDS while she was the first lady. And so and was no friend to the queer community. So why are you introducing this during Pride Month? All of this is to say that there's a lot of lies out there, and there are a lot of really manipulative people who are trying to create fear around people who share my identity. That we are in some way groomers, that we are some way trying to convince kids to be like us, as though I would want somebody else to share in the pain that I've experienced about trying to be who I'm not for 30 years of my life. Like I don't wish that on people. And so when it comes to sports, it's just another way to isolate us from the rest of society, to keep young girls, because that's what's going to happen, is there are going to be more and more states that follow this ruling and keep young girls specifically out of competing with their peers. That's where we're headed. It's going to make them ostracized even further, and it's going to make them hide from themselves, and it's going to make people unalive themselves. These we've already seen it. It's going to continue to happen. It's going to be an epidemic if we don't do something about this now. And I don't know what to do. We are so far down the road of a genocide of an entire group of people in our community, in our country. And it scares the shit out of me. So that's where I'm at.
I hear you. It's very indicative of where we are as a country and as a culture. I know we like to tell ourselves that we are progressive and we're advanced, and there's all this discourse and everything like that. And while that's true for some of the people in this nation, for the people who are running it, it is not.
Right.
And I don't know. I keep trying to figure out, like, well, yeah, I'm a guy who's like, you know, I take bad news and then I go, okay, that's bad. Now what? You know, I'm going to take some action. What am I going to do? What are the behaviors I'm going to change to make this better? And I don't know, because I feel like all the power has been stripped from me. Mm-hmm. And from you, and, you know, from all of us. I feel like there has been, in, you know, the past 30 years, a concerted attempt to consolidate the power into the hands of half a dozen billionaires and politicians, and they've done it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I know that's like a downer thing to say, but, you know, I don't know.
I'm there too, so. And I know that using the phrase genocide is a strong word, and I know that has impacts to people in their lived experience. And that may make it feel like I'm being overreactionary. But I would encourage you to look up information about where we're at on this scale as it relates to trans people. And it's kind of it's phrasing that I'm choosing to use at this point in time because of where we're at on that scale. And I'm sorry that I don't have the exact details, because where we're at needs to mean something. And if we don't use that, if I'm not being specific about choosing this language, then I think people are going to continue to go, oh, it's not that bad.
Well, and it feels to me, you know, I don't know how you feel, Alana, but it, you know, I keep going back to, you know, the whole analogy of, you know, the frog being boiled in water, right? Like the frog doesn't realize it's being boiled in water. And when we get these rulings of like, okay, no trans people are allowed in sports, it's easy to say, well, it's just sports. It's no big deal. And that is a concerted strategy, right? That is a very deliberate strategy of, you know, you just keep escalating it further and further and further, so that each time it happens, you go, well, it's just that, it's no big deal. Like, you know, I don't know what you're complaining about. It's no big deal. Yeah.
Back in the 1970s, 60s and 70s, Iran was one of the most westernized nations in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Tehran was considered the Paris of the Middle East in terms of culture, artists, all that sort of stuff. The Shah was he didn't run he didn't run a religious regime, even though the majority of the country was Muslim. And eventually what happened in that country is all these poor people and illiterate people that saw all this wealth and prestige in these cities like Tehran, started, following this loud, angry man who started saying that, all these people are influenced by all these outside people, and, they're taking, your rights away and all this sort of stuff. And it became a religious revolution. And the rights of everyone in that country was taken away. And I know all this stuff because my very first girlfriend that I had when I was in college grew up there and was and had gotten out at that time. And I have knowing that history, the way it was told to me and what I read about, and seeing what has been going on in this country the last 20 years, but more importantly, like the last 4 years, I'm saying, that whole analogy of being the frog in the boiling pot of water feels spot on, because, it just feels like there are a bunch of angry, pissed off people right now, and a lot of them are Christian conservative people.
I was going to say, let's call them for what they are, which is,
I have said this for years. I've stayed silent about this position I've had in front of a lot of people, but to close friends and family, I've said it for years. If it wasn't for the Christian right, I would probably be a fucking Republican. I swear to God, I'm a small business owner. I don't like red tape. I don't like, you know what I mean? I want small, I believe in the idea, hey, ideally small government should fucking work. It doesn't, not in this country. But I would just kind of say, like, the thing that keeps me out of the fucking Republican Party are the racists and the fucking whack job Christian rights. that are in that country, because they're full of fucking hate.
Mhm.
They're just full of fucking hate. And I just like, I can't join that party. I can't vote for these fucking candidates, even though like, on some principle levels, I'm just kind of like, yeah, okay, I can see that position. I can see where they're going from there. And it's just, to me, it's sad and unfortunate, because nobody deserves to feel hatred, to feel like they can't be safe.
Mhm.
Walk these fucking streets. It's supposed to be free. It's supposed to be a free fucking country. Everybody's supposed to have the same fucking rights. But these fucking Christians, and I call them fucking Christians because they're fucking Christians in the worst fucking way that somebody could fucking be a Christian. I can't understand what part of the Bible they are fucking reading where it's saying like, hate your fucking neighbor, because the Jesus that I was brought up to understand through my Catholic mom was, you're supposed to fucking love your neighbor, no matter who that fucking neighbor is.
Mhm.
And why they can't get it through their fucking heads in this country, I will never understand. It makes me want to go live in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I think I do understand, and it comes down to they have gotten used to their privilege. They feel their power, and they want to hold on to it.
Yeah,
that's it. They don't want to be equal. They want to be equal with other white people, but by being equal with other white people means they're at the top of the mountain, and they want to hold on to that power and lord it over everybody else. And anybody who's different from that, be it black, gay, trans, liberal, or whatever, is a threat to that.
Mhm. What we really need is a giant cat with lasers coming out of its hands to go after Hillsong,
or Black Sabbath.
It's
Black
Sabbath.
a true story, and I do, just mostly because I haven't said anything. I just want to add my voice. I mean, obviously we've sort of covered it, and I know we don't want to go too long, but it's an important topic, and we're all pretty same-minded here, and so it's just disgusting. At the same time, I can't figure out if it's a Facebook algorithm or if it's actually that these people I know don't give a shit. But as somebody who twice now has posted on the day of rulings or news about this particular story that we started with, as far as trans women in swimming, the lack of discourse that I get on those posts is disturbing to me, because it doesn't seem to be something that is setting off the alarm bells that it should. And part of me is, I think that there are a lot of people who secretly or privately or wouldn't want to voice that they're still a little stuck in, well, I mean, no, fucking get educated on what it is to be a trans woman, on what these women go through, and what HRT is. Like, you understand what you're talking about. And I think that's true with every single thing that we're talking about. And it's unfortunate because we have these January 6th hearings going on right now. And the one through line that I'm constantly hearing is that the vast majority of Republicans and all supporters of Trump are just completely ignoring it because it's all lies.
Mhm.
If you honestly believe that people under oath are just lying because that piece of shit wasn't, you're out of your mind, and you also don't believe in our government at all anyway.
Mhm.
If you can't believe that people under oath feel compelled to give true and honest testimony, then our judicial system is broken, which means our system of government is broken. If you think this is in the past, you're out of your fucking mind. These people are all running again. They're not going anywhere. The people who are giving up their seats are the old school Republicans, which current Republicans are spending their times going, well, this is just how I vote. This is my party.
Mhm.
They don't even know what the platform is. And when people are learning about this platform in Texas, and these are adopted points of the platform. This isn't like a nut job said, let's secede from the union. They adopted these points, y'all. This is not somebody wrote that on a piece of paper. This thing goes from the 2020 election isn't real to all queer people basically shouldn't exist, to life begins at conception and you need to teach in school the value of the preborn. These are tenets. And the final one is that we should in fact secede from the union. So keep in mind that this is actually what people are adopting as their tenets of what they believe and what they think is the most important thing for their party to focus on. Not how to feed people, not how to get healthcare to people, but how to destroy people who aren't like you. And that's not the country that we all think we're living in.
No, it's not. I come back to the irony of how Juneteenth is finally becoming a recognized holiday. I mean, at least here in Washington State, but it feels like it's gaining power, across the nation. And at the exact same time, we have people who are stripping schools from teaching critical race theory.
Yeah.
Like, that is deep irony. This is a country that doesn't know what it is yet.
Right.
One last thought that I had, which is for anybody listening that has the thought of, well, no, it kind of makes sense. It's not fair if, trans athletes are participating in sports with women. I want to ask you, what do you value most, a sport or inclusion? Like, that's it. It's a fucking sport. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's people competing against each other athletically. So do you value that or do you value inclusion? Because I value humanity and inclusion.
And I also want to say to those people too, if you want to talk to a trans woman about this or about the experience of being a trans woman, then you should feel free to reach out to me. Because I am, like, one of the parts of my identity that I value, that I take very seriously, is that I was socialized as a boy, as a man. And I learned a lot about what privilege is as being a white, apparently cisgender, het boy. I learned how to succeed in the world. I learned how to get by doing half of a job, and charming my way through it. I learned all of that. I never did homework in high school because I could fake my way through it because everything was designed for me. I know what that means. I know what that privilege means. And what I like to use that privilege for is to teach people and engage with people about what it means to be a trans woman, like, and how to hopefully open eyes for people who haven't engaged with somebody who shares my identity traits, especially if they're a person of color, and how that intersectionality all interacts. And I'm happy to have that conversation with people if people want to. So if you follow us, you probably know how to get in contact with us, but I'm happy to have a conversation. I do want to say, this is a total swerve. We are running very long. And I do have a friend who's in town and that I would love to go see because he doesn't live here anymore. And I wanted to make a proposal, which is that we're still in kind of the dog days of summer now when it comes to football. And I'm wondering if for our next episode, if we just do an all dorking, we'll have the boys, we can skip the boys for today. We could talk about the boys then. We could talk about Only Murders in the Building, which comes back next week, which is, I feel like it's our podcast, or our TV show is a podcast. And I want to make sure that, like, Millie, you had something that you were excited to talk about during the dorking. And if you wanted to share it now, I wanted to give you the space to do that. But I just think that, we could close up shop and then make a lot of space in the next episode to do a lot of those things.
I think that's great. I love that idea. And I just wanted to let everyone know that if they don't watch Holy Moly, it is worth your time. It's an absolutely ridiculous, fun distraction. It is a show about extreme mini golf. It is hosted by Rob Riggle and Joe Tessitore. And in a recent episode, the reason I felt this was so right was one of the mini holes is called the distractor, where you try to sink a putt while you are being distracted. And the distractor was Travis Kelce, who did something no other distractor has ever done, in that these people, I think they putted 29 times before someone finally got the ball in. Usually it's like 3.
Yeah.
He had to keep coming up with new things to do. It is, if nothing else, just look up Travis Kelce Holy Moly and watch that segment. But it's sponsored by Steph Curry, which is the other reason I was going to bring it up. Who's kind of sort of is in it, as are the Muppets this season. So Holy Moly was my dorking. Real quick, that's the rundown. Check it out.
It's a fun show. I totally agree.
All right. This is good because my laptop is actually low on batteries now. It's telling me. We've been at it for a while, but that's okay. I think we gave space to some a really important topic, and I'm pleased that we were able to speak about what we were. Next podcast, all dorking. That's gonna be fun. Yeah, we'll see where the Mariners are at by then.
Dorks,
finally be a
not
500.
on sports.
Exactly.
We call
Or-
it dorks, not on sports.
Or we could call
Dorks,
it
dorks,
Dorks
not
on
on
Dorks.
Dorks on Dorks.
Hey, if you're listening, check out Curtis's blog, 12life.com. He's always got some good stuff. It's been on a hiatus for a bit with the Seahawks, deep in the off season, but he's always got some good stuff going on there.
I've got something new in the works there.
What's that?
I've got something new in the works there
Curtis's
that
guy,
I've
he's
been sort
cooking
of
something up.
massaging.
I like it. Taking Alana up on her offer to chat her up about trans people in sports. Once again, my name is Daniel. For Curtis, Alana, Millie, the rest of the 12s, saying goodbye. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
He's in love.